Rob, I have you again. And this time, Rob, we are going to speak on the second challenge. So, Rob, you were here last time. We spoke on my series, which is Supporting and Sustaining Continuous Improvement, the 13th episode. We spoke at length on the hotel story, the challenges that you face in the hospitality, the hotel business. And we spoke of the first challenge, that is dealing with the guests. In length, we spoke about it. And now what I would like to hear from you is the second challenge that we are facing. That is, how do we groom the employees, right from your reception to probably the marketing. If I have to talk from the reception area to your housekeeping, to your room service, to your catering, how do you get all these people trained for, as you said, surprise and delight? And we ended up the first challenge by saying CARE.
Yeah, customers are really everything.
So customers are really everything. And how do you make your employees get the same feeling? As a leader, you have been there for 30 years in the hotel business. And how do you do this? How do you get all your employees involved to have the same feeling? Customers are really everything. Have I got it right this time?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's it. That's
Dr. M is not a bad listener.
No,
right?
you learned very well.
Okay, over to you. Over to you.
Okay, so internal customers. Yeah, well, the very first thing, I think this one of the secrets, the major secrets to this is to treat your employees as they are internal customers. Because for a manager or a leader, for me, your first customer is your employee, because they are customer facing, and especially in the hospitality industry or the service sector, the person that's facing the customer is not the manager, not the leader. The person that's facing the customer is the employee, the line employee or the supervisor or the middle manager, whoever it is. They are facing the customer, not you. So what you have to ensure, first of all, is that you're treating your customers, which are the employees, as if they are customers. So again, care comes into play. You have to take care, there's a lot of things being said about this, and today it's a very big thing in leadership and management. People are constantly talking about care, how to care for employees.
Yeah, Rob, can I sorry to halt your flow over there, because this reminds me that since I read your book, One-to-One,
yeah,
and also your employee empowerment, as you called it. And in employee empowerment, you talk to us about 3 T's, if I'm not mistaken. Training, tools, just fill me up with the 3 T's.
I know. So it's the empowerment triangle. Yeah, it's empowerment. It's to do with autonomy, giving autonomy to your employees. Yeah.
Yes.
It's basically so basically you have a triangle where you have basically training.
Yeah.
The trust.
Yeah.
And the tools. So
see, you're such a powerful author that I still remember it, right?
Thank you very much.
And you have One-to-One, and that's again very powerfully placed. And you have been writing so much about leadership, etc. So let's talk about it.
Okay. So you want me to start with the 3 T's?
I would like to you to speak to me everything that what you want to for us to understand how you.
Yeah, so,
for example, like the way you said, you got the dream job when you moved from Budapest to Paris, and then you landed up in 2008, and then I did hear. Did I read it, or did I talk to you in an informal way as how you dealt with the people when you had to help the people, in the sense you had to say that employees first, and you said, no, I am not going to downsize my employees. If I get it right.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, you got it right. I didn't.
Talk to us about it. Right.
So I'll talk to you about that. Yeah, the fact is, I put the employees first because one of the key success factors in the hotel industry, obviously, is adaptability. Because as you know, when you have a world economic crisis or you have a pandemic, which we're actually still in, one of the first things that happens is that the people spend their money on leisure a lot less or differently. So in 2008, what happened was, with the subprime crisis, a lot of people started to downsize their teams in the hotels around me, and basically my top direction asked me to do the same thing, and I refused. Because I explained it was to my bosses was to say, well, actually, adaptability is two ways. Huh? It goes one way and then it goes the other. So first of all, we're having a downsize now if you want to do that. But then what's going to happen when business goes back up? Are we going to be ready for that? Not at all. We won't be ready. I said, not only will we not be ready, but we'll have a problem, because we'll have a problem. And it's exactly what's happening today in the hotel industry, is people are having problems to recruit. Because they got rid of so many employees that when they came to the bit where the business went back up, and in 2010, business went back up quite substantially, they didn't have the people necessary and they weren't ready to start business. So that was one of my explanations that I gave. The other explanation was to say that
holds good today too, with the pandemic.
Oh yeah, it holds good with the pandemic because, for example, with the Brexit, for example, there's a lot of people from a certain number of countries in Europe that were working in the hotel industry in Great Britain. We no longer, because of the Brexit, no longer had valid visas to stay in Great Britain, so they left. Then Britain discovered that they needed these workers for the hotel business to work and had to issue 20,000 visas in an emergency to get these people to come back. So really, it was very, and this is what I'm trying to explain, is it's to really try and avoid, when we have situations like that, like we did in 2008, to avoid short-term thinking, because it is short-term. Downsizing like that is very short-term. In the short term, yeah, of course it works. You reduce costs. So what I did instead, I said to my team, I told them the truth. I said, I've been asked to downsize. I've refused. And the reason I've refused is because I am confident that together, if we participate as a group and as collaborators, as we should be, we'll be able to find ways to save money, which is going to avoid downsizing. And it's exactly what happened, Dr. Those people, they gave me everything. The finance, they came up with a profit protection plan, which is what they called it, which was it was their name. They even named the thing, the beast, as I call it now. They named this profit protection plan and they presented it to me for 5 hours after working on it for a month. I can tell you something.
Yep.
There was so much material in there. You know, for the well, we'll give you an example. The very first lines of the written introduction to this massive document at the end of me was basically to say that during this period of the downturn in business, the very first thing we had to do was think about energy and saving energy and water. So they talked about that, and then they went straight into the subject. So the first thing that happened was that we closed 10 floors of the hotel. Closed 10 floors. And what we did, we got those people who were working on those floors to do something else with their time. So instead of cleaning the rooms, they were actually helping to serve breakfast, or they were helping to do things that were still there, or they were preparing for the future, and you know, changing all the light shades and all this kind of thing, and doing work, different work, but still work. So we're saving energy. And then there was so many ideas on this profit protection plan. But the important point to understand is it didn't come from me. What it came from was honesty and integrity, because I told them the truth. I told my executive team the truth. I told them, this is what the big guys upstairs, they're expecting us to downsize. I've refused, and now I need your help to make sure that we can get through this. And that's exactly what I got, a huge amount of help, because my team understood that everyone's job was on the line, including ours. So, you know, that if we didn't succeed to somehow make economies of scale and other things, that we weren't going to get through this. And everyone really put their hands in, and they got their hands dirty. Yeah. So it was a great experience. It started off being something very difficult to envisage, and it ended up being a fantastic team experience, because we got together and we solved the problem together. And it was a real lesson for me in what I would call, hyper participative management, because they had all the cards were on the table. Yeah.
So this experience that you had, and is that what ignited in you to write employee empowerment and one-to-one? And just talk to us about it, and talk to us, how do you train the frontline people, the reception, the restaurant people, and also talk to us about, for example, the restaurant people and the person who serves and the cook. Do you have conflict between them? Do you have departmental conflicts between them?
Oh, yeah.
With it. In organization, we have silos. Do you have silos in the hotel business?
Yeah, you do. You do.
Talk to us about it.
Well, I'll talk to you about that. This is the best thing to do to get rid of the silo effect, as I'll call it. Yeah, because I'll give you a very obvious example between people that have divergent objectives. It often happens when the objectives have been given to groups of people that are divergent. So what happens is, for example, you say to housekeeping, this year, your main objective is to ensure that our property, the score of cleanliness goes from 8.5 in the external audit to 9.5. Okay, and then you tell the reception, your objective this year is to make sure that we reduce check-in times for business travelers from 7 minutes to 5 minutes. So what you've just done is you've just given two completely diverging objectives, because you've told housekeeping the quality of the cleanliness has to get better, so it's going to take time. And then you're telling the reception to reduce the waiting time at the reception. Unfortunately, when you do that, what's happened is the reception will start to become, when they don't have rooms, when the guest arrives, and let's say the check-in time's 2 o'clock, and the guest arrives at the hotel, terribly sorry, sir, your room's not ready. So what happens is, then reception start to phone housekeeping and say, well, why are the rooms not ready? Get me more rooms now. I need the rooms now. We can't do that, because we must ensure that we've got the top quality and that we're taking our time to do it. So you'll just have to wait on the rooms. Okay, so you can see I divert. It's very easy to see that there you have two silos, which actually should be working together. So what we could do to solve that situation is to say that the overall guest experience, instead of giving them separate objectives and saying yours is cleanliness and yours is the waiting time, you say that the overall score of guest satisfaction must go from, for the rooms division, should go from 7 to 8.5. And they've all got the same objective. So what you're doing is you're giving some coherence and cohesion to give an objective which is the same for both teams. So they have to work.
I would intervene there for a second. So that is the leadership role that you have given them an objective. Now, do you hand it over to them, how they work it out among themselves? So
this is the next stage. I'll continue the story, the same story, because this actually happened. So it's a real story. So what happened was, there was a problem with this, that the guests were waiting too long, and they weren't getting rooms, and big complaints from the guests on TripAdvisor, for example. Yeah, and they're right. Yeah, you get to the hotel, you've not got your room, and you're there, you're right check-in time. So what the very first thing that happened was the reception. They started having meetings together. So this is quite a funny story. Yeah? They started having meetings together, and so the meetings were okay. So what is it? Is the PMS system? So the PMS system is the property management system. Is it too slow? So we didn't invite the IT guy to our meeting, so we'll have to invite him next time to the meeting. So they'd forgotten. So they invited him the next time. So then they talked about that. Said no, the system's not too slow. Okay. Is our operating procedure the correct one? Do we have the correct equipment? Is it the computers are too old, or is it the printers are not working fast enough to print out the bills when people are checking out? So we lose time, yeah? How are we losing time? Then someone said, what about training? Are we giving enough training to the people at the reception when they arrive? Or is it a problem they can't do the check-in fast enough because they're not trained well enough to do that? And they said, so who did we invite to the meeting? Oh yeah, the HR manager's not here. So, okay. So then they had to have another meeting. This reception. This goes on. It's quite funny. We'll get to them. So they invited the HR person to the next meeting. So they said, oh yeah, sure, right, you tell us. So should we do more training, blah, blah, blah. And so they worked out, in fact, yes, there was a little problem with the training. So they got to that. But the problem was still continuing. It was getting worse and worse. And then they said, okay, so this is one. I'll let it go on for I think it went on for 4 weeks, all these meetings, and eventually I came to one of the meetings because I wanted to give them the autonomy to sort this out themselves. But I came to one of the meetings and I sat through the meeting. I didn't say anything.
You were not present for all this, right? In the initial stage, you were not present.
Sorry?
Initial stage.
I wasn't present. No, I wasn't present for the first meetings. No, I wasn't present at all. But I came to one of the meetings because I wanted to see how they were getting on, yeah? And I just told them, can I come? And blah, blah. He said, oh, of course, sorry, no problem. And so I came to the meeting. And was talking. And of course, then they had the reception people, they had the IT manager, they had even sales and marketing over there. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. They had revenue management people there, they had everyone. And I said, it's not occurred to anyone that there's a team missing. No, we're trying to sort this problem about reception, yeah. Said, we're housekeeping. What? Well, we're housekeeping. We hadn't invited. I said, so okay. So I said, could you please make sure? So the next meeting we'll have, and I'll come again, and we'll talk about it together. Yeah, I'll try and facilitate this for you as well. And so the housekeeping, the head housekeeper and the assistant they came to the next meeting, and the problem was solved in approximately, I think it was 5 minutes. The whole problem was solved, the whole issue. Why was that? Because they'd been concentrating. They got tunnel vision, Dr. So basically, it's a reception problem, right? So reception and all the people, the support functions that help reception are going to fix this. But we certainly don't need housekeeping to fix our own problem, yeah? In actual fact, the problem came from housekeeping because what had happened was they had a system which allowed the housemaid to actually, she plugged in a number to the telephone to say that the room had been cleaned, and it went straight through to the PMS system to say that the room was available, yeah?
Oh my God.
However, the floor supervisor decided they didn't like the system. So they decided all on their own that they would decide when the rooms were ready. And they were trying to telephone the reception once they checked about 10 rooms. Instead of when they checked one, they didn't phone each time. And there was also a problem because these cell phones, they couldn't get through to the reception because the telephone reception was always blocked. Yeah. So in fact, all the rooms were ready, but the system didn't know they were ready. So we saw, as I said, so now we get HR, we get housekeeping, we get them all together, we give them the training to the housemaids so they can plug in these rooms themselves, yeah, and there'll just be spot checks to ensure that the cleanliness is okay. Is that okay for everyone? Yeah, let's do that. So, and that was it. It took 20 minutes, the whole thing was solved. And it was really solved because we saw in the scores afterwards, because there were scores that were broken down into, you know, arrival time at reception, departure time at reception, and arrival time at reception satisfaction had been going down and down and down. We were like nearly at 5 on 10. It went up that year to 9 on 10, so 90% instead of 50. So you can imagine, and that's just from one thing, one misunderstanding, and not having invited the correct people to that meeting in the first place. Because if they got everyone around the table the first time, all the right people that should have been there, they'd be able to work this out much faster.
But did you make it as a practice that all of them come to the table probably once in a week or once in a month, or what was the routine as such?
Well, what happened, actually, following on from this experience, what happened was quality circles were put in place. and the quality circles were basically, it said they had to be heterogeneous. So they weren't allowed to, for example, they weren't allowed to have a quality circle that only talked about maintenance and there was only maintenance people there. If they wanted to have talk about quality management in the maintenance department had to invite all the people that they worked with. So reception, housekeeping, there had to be representatives from every department. So the quality circles were heterogeneous. There were different subjects chosen. where we had issues with quality, but each time there had to be a number of different people involved from different areas. And why was that? It was because, and also we also mixed it up so that it wasn't always a. So we tried to make sure there was always men and women involved in these quality circles, and there was always younger people and older people, and so we made it as heterogeneous as possible, yeah, from all aspects in these quality circles, so that we could gain the maximum number of different perspectives on the problem at hand, yeah. And this was a very effective tool for us because we got some amazing results. So within 2 years, the overall quality, because we'd been hanging around, I think it was 70%, 72%, we took it to 86 global quality score from outside, from external audit. Yeah? So from 72 to 86% because of that process. Quality circles, combined quality circles that we had that were going on. It was every month these quality circles were going on. So it was very great.
Yeah, and then how do you, in the first challenge that we said about the guests and the surprise, the delight part of it, and the care part of it, and the power of observation. These are the three, the major factors that you spoke.
Yeah, the major factors that contribute to guest satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you align your employees towards that?
Well,
as a leader,
alignment's a great word. The word you just used is a great word because it's basically to say that everyone has to be in the, rowing in the same direction. It's all about teamwork, isn't it? Yeah. So it's one of my favorite acronyms, actually. Team. Yeah. And I was always telling my employees the same thing. Yeah. Together, everyone achieves more. So it's also about each of those elements helping.
You used the acronym for team. T for what?
So together.
Together. E.
Everyone.
A.
Achieves.
M.
More.
Together, everyone achieves more. That's team.
Exactly.
Great, yeah. Rob. Great. No wonder you are the bestseller. Okay.
So that alignment happens because you give common objectives. So it's very important to say that you give common objectives. First of all, you tell people that the quality of service is the thing that everyone should be concentrating on. Their one most important job they have and the most important role that they have in the hotel is in the service of the client. So they all learn, of course, the expression we talked about earlier, which is care. So customers are really everything. So leadership's and management's job is not only to convince people that that is the case, but also to provide them with training so that the SOPs and the sequence of services become so automatic that
it's like a muscle reflex. It's instinct, right?
Yes, instinct. It becomes an instinct. It's almost part of them. Yeah, because it becomes really a company culture which is driven towards service. So that's what's important. But in order to do that, you have to give them, first of all, the training, as I've just said. You have to give them the training that's required, because sometimes, for example, if you say to someone, I'm going to train you for 2 days, and then you're going to go to the reception, and then you're going to welcome guests. That's impossible. Any PMS system takes at least 2 weeks to learn, theoretically. Yeah? And then you have to practice it.
How many
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 14 days.
Full-time theoretical training. Yeah, they're very complex systems. So you have.
Really, I'm sorry to interrupt you because I'm getting more and more curious.
Yeah.
Is right from the time that you recruit somebody, they have to undergo these trainings. So you got different types of training at different phases in life. For
oh yeah, of course, yeah. And then the very first thing to get the employees on board.
This syncs with what I had read in your book of 3 T's. So
yeah,
just take us across from recruitment, the career path for your employees. How do you do that with the focus towards the care for the guests? Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I know you can talk for 5 days. I know about it, but
there's no problem. I can talk.
Just
for
give
5
us a
years.
capsule for that.
So yeah, the 3 main elements, the 3 T's you just mentioned. Yeah. So just very briefly, and then I'll answer your question correctly. Is the 3 T's basically it's all about it's like training, tools, and trust. So you give them the training, Yeah, you give them the tools, the correct tools to do the job. Yeah, then you stand back and let them get on with their job. So you give them autonomy, you empower them to do their job. But to get to that stage, so starting from recruitment, as you just said, as you just asked, the recruitment process, it's not about hiring people who are already competent. That's not what's important for me. What's important for me is to hire people that have got the right attitude. So there's a lot of what we call situational interviewing. Now, situational interviewing, what is that? Situational interviewing is where you ask someone, so if you had this problem, how would you deal with it? Or if you had this problem in the past, what was the solution that you found for it? And then you be quiet, and you let them explain how they do it. It's one of the best ways to discover if someone's able to solve problems, first of all. Also, it gives an idea of their attitude towards work, their work ethic and attitude, because of the way you ask the questions, yeah, because it's all institute. It's always you're talking about real situations that they've solved in the past and how they solved them. So you get an idea of what kind of, how they approach things. And this is for me much more important than them. So that's more important for me than say to hire someone who already had the training in the PMS system, yeah, but has got a really bad attitude. I would always take the person that's got the better attitude and spend the money to train, because that for me is how you maintain and how you attain quality. Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is, and I posted this on LinkedIn quite recently, so it's quite fresh in my mind, is you hire for will, yeah, you hire for will, the attitude, and then you train for the skill. For me, it's all about the person, because if you've got someone in front of you, if you're in a total service industry and you want best quality possible, yeah, you want best of class quality, you have to have the right people there. The right people who love other people who love service, who really like being with other people. That's the most important thing, because everything else, all the standard operating procedures, all the sequence of service, how to use the tools, for example, the computer systems and everything they have to learn, the reservation system, all this, that can be learned. But what is very difficult to change, if someone's got, it's like it's a bit of a saying for you here. This is not a saying I read in the book, but it's just, it's a bad attitude. Yeah, it's like a flat tire in a car. Yeah,
pardon me?
A bad attitude.
Yeah, it's
like having a flat tire in a car. Yeah,
a flat tire in a car. Okay.
Yeah, because you can't go anywhere till you change it. Yeah. Yep. so for me, that's what recruitment and selection is all about, is getting people with the right attitude. Yeah. It's really attitude above all, because if someone really is interested and likes other people and has a propensity towards other people, someone that's outgoing to other people and likes discussing and communicating, that's the kind of person you need in a customer-facing environment. Yeah? You don't need someone that's going to have a bad attitude, that's not going to turn up on time, it's not going to be work ethic. You don't need these kind of people, yeah, in that kind of industry, because the industry also has a certain number of constraints, such as having to work long hours. Sometimes you're working hours when other people are relaxing. You're working in the evening or you're working weekends. Yeah, so you have to make sure you've got the right people.
So, so you talk to us about what I hear you speaking is the first part. What you told me is that it's how you break the silos. That's what you spoke earlier, of getting people together, and then you took the help of quality circles, and that okay, and then you talked about getting the right people, or getting the people in, because with the right attitude, implying thereby that they have to have a flair for people, getting along with people, like to work with people. So there is a joy in work for them. So you're looking for the joy in work for them, working with people. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
And then I come to this issue, while you have solved the silos to a large extent, but What about the career path? How do you retain these people back into your organization?
Retention.
Because
retention.
that's a perishable commodity, isn't it? You train.
Yeah, of course it is.
They train these people. They are all good, and they are all in your high echelon hotel,
Yep.
and there are enough people to steal them.
Yeah, of course. There are always people looking to steal.
Them, Rob, how do you retain them as a general manager?
Well, you can't. Well, you could always try and lock the doors and keep it. But it's not going to work. Yeah.
How do you build a culture then?
No. The culture for me is I hate to mention someone's name, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Yes, it's Mr. Richard Branson. Yeah. He said something very interesting once about this. He said, train the people well enough so that they can leave, then treat them well enough so they don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's really quite simple. It's if you do want, well, the very first thing you have to ensure. So apart from what Richard Branson said, the very first thing you have to ensure is that your HR department has its eyes open. They're observing what's happening around you in the other hotels, for example. And why is that? To make sure that your pay scale is correct. There's one thing that can happen, whatever you think. If people know that just cross the road and go 200 meters and they're going to get paid 1.5 times more than you're paying them, they're going to go. So one thing is you have to ensure that you're not underclass in terms of salary. That's one thing you have to do. But more important than that, it's all about the culture that you imbibe, and it's how they're treated at work every single day. So it can be towards all the conditions, and I call this the service profit chain. So to get from
what do you call it?
The service profit chain. So what it means
service
is
profit change, right? Chain.
The service to profit chain.
Okay.
So how it all works. So we talked already in our first episode about the customer, and the customer and the guest, how to treat the guest, and so forth. But to get to that kind of treatment, that level of service with all the surprise and delight, your training has to be excellent, for your own employees. Then you have to look after them. You have to make sure that the physical conditions at work are perfect, so that, for example, there aren't problems with lighting or heating or silly things, which can always happen. But you have to ensure they're comfortable in the workplace, that they have the right tools to work with. They have the best tools, the best of class tools to work with, so that their computer system doesn't break down halfway through every time they try and do a check-in or something like that, because that would be very frustrating, and you would get people, you have retention problems then. So you also have to make sure that the managers are trained so that they also give service to the employees. I'll give you a very concrete example of this. You have to train people in order to ensure that the managers I'm talking about, to ensure that they know how to do an appraisal interview, for example. Because it's one place, it's in a year's calendar, one of the most important instance for an employee is when they have their evaluation, their appraisal interview. Now, if the managers don't know how to do it, you're going to get some very bad surprises. You get people leaving because either they don't agree with the evaluation, the manager didn't know how to do an evaluation. And this almost happened to me in a hotel where in fact, I looked through because it was like 700-800 people working in the hotel, and I looked through the departments and saw that everyone was okay, but there was no one that was great, and there was no one that was really bad. So that's not possible. That's just not possible. So what had happened was they'd had no formal training. The management team had no formal training in how to do an evaluation correctly. The other thing they weren't doing, they weren't seeing the employees on an individual basis. So what was happening in the teams is I would get my team, and I told them what I wanted was that I would do one-to-one time with all of my executive team members. So every month I'd see them for an hour and a half, 2 hours, every month, each one of them, each 12. I'd see every one of them once a month for 2 hours, and we'd sit down, we'd talk about their objectives, we'd talk about what they were doing, what their problems were, where they had issues, where they needed my help or not, did they need extra resources to do their job. And what we decided was, as a team, that system had to cascade throughout the whole hotel because it wasn't happening before. So people they would talk to their team, for example, in the morning at a briefing and say, hi guys, this is how many arrivals we've got today. This is how many VIP guests we've got. Get out there, get your job done. A bit like in the police or the army. And then said, no, that's not enough. We need to get this one-to-one experience where each employee has to have this with his manager. We have to build relationships based on trust. And the only way to do that is through doing it in an individual way with each employee. So that each manager at each level of the organization had to have one-to-ones with all their team members.
Tell me, Rob, very interesting that you told me about it. But how do you make the managers realize that they are not so busy being busy that they don't have time for one-to-one? How do you do that? How do you get the time?
Well, it's less haste, more speed. That's what my mother used to tell me.
What?
Less haste, more speed.
Less haste, more speed.
Yeah. So it's exactly what I told them. I said to them, you have to take time to plan. You cannot envisage being a manager without giving yourself some time to take a step back from what you're doing from time to time. And even if you put an appointment in your agenda and you say, I'm making an appointment with me, Mr. Stewart's making an appointment with Mr. Stewart for next week at that time from 10 till 12, and no one is allowed to come and see me during those 2 hours. Because during those 2 hours, what I'm doing is I'm planning, I'm taking a step back from my work. I'm saying, what am I doing? Am I doing the right things? Because it's all very well to do the same thing over and over and do it really well. But in actual fact, are you actually doing the right thing? So that requires thought. That requires to take time out, mentally, out of the work. This is what I explained to my managers. I explained to them that planning was crucial at an individual level, not only at team level or strategic level, but also on an individual level. Planning. So it's proper planning prevents poor performance. The 5 Ps of planning. This is what I told them.
Go ahead. Let's hear that because.
Proper planning.
Proper planning
prevents poor performance.
Proper planning prevents
poor performance.
Poor performance. Okay, there are 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Hey, you should have hired me and put me in a 7-star hotel in a suit. Okay, it's not too late. I'm coming to Paris.
No.
So talk to us.
So the other thing, so they understood that in fact, and my other catchphrase, to have other catchphrase on planning as well. Yeah, it's failing to plan is planning to fail.
Pardon?
Failing to plan is planning to fail.
I repeat it so that it gets into my planning to.
No, failing to plan.
Failing to plan
is planning to fail.
Failing to plan is planning to fail. Okay.
Exactly.
I repeat it again. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I got it right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, now you can catch me at any point of time. I can do that. Okay.
So basically, what we did at first, of course, like all change and all in continuous improvement, there's always a certain amount of resistance at the beginning. So even when I announced to my executive team, we're all going to do one-to-ones, and you can still see me? I thought it stopped. So when you do one-to-ones and so forth, at the beginning, some of them are saying, as you said earlier, your question was, so yeah, but then how are you going to have all this time? And because we're so busy and blah, blah. I said, yeah, okay. I said, it's a bit like training, isn't it? They said, well, what do you mean it's like training? I said, well, let's take an example. Let's say at the reception, we decide we don't give any training to the people at the reception, and we stick them behind the reception and say, okay, now just get on with the check-ins. What do you think will happen? Be a disaster? So, of course, it'll be a disaster. So it's a bit like training. I said, you have to take the time to make the time. Yeah, because if you don't, you're going to spend so much time putting out fires. You get your fire, it's a mental, it's not actually the fire extinguisher. You're going to spend so much time putting out fires because you won't have organized your own time. How could you possibly think you'll be able to organize the time of your teams if you can't even organize your own? And they're, oh yeah, well, that's the point. But some people came on board straight away because they understood the interest. Because it was like most things, yeah, where's the interest for me? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
then I explained to them, I said, okay, where's the interest for you? Well, the interest for you is what? You don't have to come and see me as often to ask me as many questions. You'll have more autonomy, you'll have more empowerment, and you'll have more time. How does that work? Because you only have to see me 2 hours a month, which means that you don't have to come and see me 50 times during the month to ask me a silly question. Because we'll sit down, we'll formalize everything, and we'll have that discussion, and you'll know you can write things down and ask me the questions in that time. You don't have to come up and see me every 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to save a huge amount of time.
So what I hear you saying is, when you give them that sort of autonomy and you give them the freedom to talk to you once in a month, 2 hours, I mean,
Yeah.
that is probably some sort of a structure, but that does not mean that you're closing the door for them for the rest of this thing. Your door.
No. It doesn't.
This is a structure. This is a structure.
The structure.
And probably in that structure, when you meet for 2 hours with a person, you're driving out the fear from him, isn't it? Isn't that a route in which he can ventilate a grievance and fear, etc.?
Of course. It's their time. What they've got to understand about this one-to-one. The very first thing they have to understand is their time. It's their time.
2 hours with you is their time, right?
It's their time. So it goes to the point where
you're listening.
Yeah, I'm only there to listen. I'm only there to facilitate for them. Yeah, so that if they have a grievance or if they have a problem they can't solve, they can talk about it to me. You know, I can try and help them. So to facilitate, if they need extra resources, I'm there to listen to what kind of resources they need. They need more human resources. They need more financial resources. Make a point of their objectives. Has the outside context in the world changed so that their objective is now meaningless? So we have to change the objective. Yeah, so we have time to do that in this meeting. So they can tell me I can no longer do this because now outside in the world's doing this, and that objective you gave me is that we agreed on is no longer possible. Okay. So let's have a look at how we're going to change all this round. Yeah. Okay. So you have time to have these discussions, and what you're building is you're building two things. You're building a relationship that's really based on trust, because that meeting is between four walls, and the only two people that are involved are you and that other person, and that discussion is never going to go anywhere. It's only between us. So even my boss at the top, you know, the chief executive officer, he's never going to hear any of these discussions. It's between me and you, and that's it. And that's how you get.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way you say, but this is Rob's way of doing it.
Yeah.
But how do you percolate it down to the last person, last manager who will carry on what you have been doing?
Well, this is a really good question, and it's a really easy answer. Because you make putting in place one-to-one, structured one-to-ones, yeah, based on a structure which is given to all levels. So going from top management, executive management, middle management, supervisory level and down, you give them all the same objective that during the year they have to have, yeah, one-to-ones with their teams, yeah, in a structured manner, and you give them the structure, the basic structure for these meetings, and it becomes part of their objectives for the year, their annual objectives. So basically, if they don't do it, they're going to fail their year, they're going to fail their objectives. So it's in no way a threat. It just means that it becomes a normal part of the operating procedure for the hotel, yeah, or for wherever you're working. So it becomes like this, the SOPs or like the sequence of service, it becomes a natural reflex for these people because it's part of their objectives, it's part of what they have to do, it's part of their job. So, and they know this. And if they, you know, so the convincing goes from my level to my executive team. The executive team's job is to convince the middle management, and middle management must convince everyone that's in a service operating environment or a supervisory role to do the same way. So the thing has to cascade throughout the whole organization. And the reason that's so important is because if someone, for example, and this happened, this is a true story. It happened everywhere in the hotel except in housekeeping. And the housekeeping manager gave us even they said, I don't feel comfortable with doing this with my this floor supervisors. I said, why is that? Well, there's nothing to discuss. I said, oh. I said, that's interesting. So what do you mean you don't discuss? Yeah, well, the others reception. They can discuss check-in times. They can discuss how the system is working, and they can discuss blah blah blah. What is it? I said, but you're one of the most important departments in the hotel. The quality of cleaning in the rooms, the products, training the rooms maids about how to use the products properly. Yeah, training the rooms maids in chest and posture, how to hold posture so they don't hurt their back so much when they're making the beds. And I went on for about 10 minutes and gave her about 20 or 30 subjects. I said, so you have nothing to discuss, or do you understand now that you can make a structure out of that? No, no problem, sir. Off she went. It was done. Because she just hadn't understood that the point was not for her to do all the talking. The point was for them to do all the talking, for her to listen and to facilitate their job. So I had to explain it to her again. But then once that was done, it was fine. It went through. It went fine.
So what I hear you saying that, okay, I'm very curious about this. So just, so let me be a little curious. This is Dr. M's vodcast, so I can be curious.
Of course.
So what I'm saying is, when you have a structure, there is, I mean, I'm just assuming that a structure is there, I have to follow it. So it becomes a rule that has been put. So if there is a rule put, then how do you remove the fear that if I don't do it, I'll be punished?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Factor, and so they can mock up. I mean, I'm not saying I trust every human being, but the natural tendency is, I mean, the human tendency is to say, I have to do it, so I'm doing it. So how do you get that, it's not that Rob told me to do it, so I have to do it. It is, how do you get that from within, that it is not a part of your
okay, so how do you get them to believe
sell it, that they
yeah, exactly, how to sell it? Yeah, no, I understand. So how to sell it, right? So what we did two things. We did we did it back to front. So, well, I'll explain what I mean. So back to front meant, of course, it started at the top. So I'm not going to lie to you, it did start at the top. It's myself and it was my executive team. So I had to convince my executive team it's the right way to go and blah, blah, blah. But how did I do that? How do you think I convinced them? I didn't tell them this is what we're going to do and it's like that and it's not otherwise. Yeah. What I did was I did a seminar where we got everyone together outside the hotel, the executive team, 12 of us, 13 of us with me. So we went outside 2 days, and the subject was, how are we going to improve internal communication within the hotel on an individual basis with all of our staff? So basically, we brainstormed it, we meta-planned it, then we did a lot of what we call, what's it called again? I've forgotten the name. Not brainstorming. We did, what's it called? Mind maps, yeah? So they all had to make mind maps of how they saw this process. Then we merged it all together. And in fact, what happened was they came out with the perfect one-to-one, how to do a perfect one-to-one, but they designed the thing. So in terms of convincing the next level, which is the operational management level, the middle management level, what they did, I asked them to do separate seminars with those people in order to do the same exercise again. Okay, although they already had the answers, it doesn't matter. I said, you don't tell them you've got the answer. They have to come with the answer. And if it doesn't quite match, answer, yeah, you have to slide it across and convince. Is we got people involved and we got it done in a participative way so that when the decision was made, everyone was already on board. They already knew what was happening.
What I hear you saying in this process, there was a lot of ownership because it came from them, and there was this alignment that took place right from the top to the bottom. They're all aligned together, and there was an ownership.
Yeah, they were aligned and owned it, and because they owned it, they believed it. So at the end of the day, we had a couple of times we had some people. You always get people like this that are going to be recalcitrant and going to say, "Well, this is all bullshit," and I've heard it all before. But that was very, very rare. And in fact, when people understand the benefits for them and for their team, in general, once they understand the benefits, it's what you said earlier. It's basically it's a big selling job. It's basically how to sell, and the way I chose to sell it was through participation. And in fact, all my strategy for the hotels I worked in was always the same. It was always a strategy, participative strategy, to say that if people don't believe in what I'm telling them, yeah, let them tell me what they believe, yeah, then turn it around into what we should all believe, and then everyone works the same in the same direction.
Yeah, this was 30 years in 5 different companies, 5 different hotels.
Yeah.
Paris, you started with Disney, then you went to Le Meridien, if I remember.
Yeah. So I went to.
And then you went to Poland, that was Bristol.
Yeah.
Then you went to Budapest. That was called what in Budapest?
The Corinthia Grand Hotel.
Yeah, and then you came back to Paris, and so everywhere you adopted a similar approach.
Yeah, I did indeed.
Yeah, but tell me one thing, and this is the ticklish part of it. And sorry, it never occurred to me, but as we were talking about it, tell me, you did everything. You helped the employees in 2008 when you told your boss that nothing doing, I'm not going to send anybody home. They came up with a suggestion, and it looks like a fairy tale, but you are experienced it, and you know that it is authentic, and this is what you do, and therefore you told us about the people, how you recruit people, and the people orientation, etc., and how you cascade the thoughts which is emerging from them. You just guide them, scaffold them, and give them the direction, but it's all evolved through them, and then it goes down, and there is an ownership and alignment. However, here is the big question for you. You're doing all this for your employees. They're all people. People matter. A hotel business, I think, like what I'm hearing you saying, is all people business.
Yeah.
How do you convince your boss that this is the way you do it?
Convincing the boss. Okay, so yeah, that's
get a yes from your boss.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. Well, actually, that's solved before we even start.
Pardon me?
Because solved before we even start. Because when for example, when I came back to Paris, when I agreed to come back to Paris, when I agreed to come back and to be the director general or the general manager of this huge structure in Paris, when we sat down, there was a number of things that were negotiated. And one of the most important things was negotiated. I had complete.
That's at the time that you took over as an employment.
No, it's before I accepted the job.
Before you accepted the job, yeah.
Yeah, before I accepted the job, I made it very clear. I said, and it's always the same with me. I always tell them, okay, so I'm in charge of this. So we sit down. How often? Yeah, is it once every 3 months? Is it once every 6 months? How often do we sit down together? Yeah, to discuss things. Yeah. And the second point is my autonomy and my empowerment are 100%. Which means what? Which means, well, just to put it very bluntly, it means I make all decisions regarding hiring, firing. It's me. There's never interference from them. So if you hire me, yeah, we sit down once a year, you evaluate what's happened in terms of performance, in terms of the key performance indicators of the business, and you'll see that they're all green because you've let me run the business how I know how to run the business. Yeah, and that's agreed before I even start, and it's written into the contract. Written.
Okay,
so
now that you gave us the secret sauce, because you are in a hotel business, so let me use the word sauce for you, the secret sauce. Tell me one thing, and that's a final question.
Yeah.
We heard, because you're going to come back on Dr. M's vodcast subsequently. It's very difficult to catch you, Rob. You're so busy that, of course, we had a little bit of COVID problem, but then to catch you, it took me about 6 months to get you on the show. Yeah, we interacted at least 3 times before we got into the show and started recording. Tell me one thing, and the final thing.
Yeah.
Doing 30 years with what you said, at the general manager's level, the top manager level, tell me the best boss without naming. Don't name. Have you ever got a bad boss who said, I don't agree with your contract? You never signed up?
No,
You said...
no, but I did have one. I had two guys that were fabulous managers. In my career, I've had 2 fantastic bosses. I mean, really, just, you know, who I emulate, they're my mentors. Yeah, I mean, these are people who are just fabulous bosses. Yeah? Who listened, who gave you time. I also had once, in spite of having, said what I said at the beginning, to say that, we agree things in advance and blah, 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 who then went ahead and disrespected everything you said. So I wasn't there very long.
Pardon me?
I wasn't there very long. I told him, basically I said, so you've not respected this, you've not respected that, you've not respected this. So now I'm leaving. So the check will be what size, and I'll see you in another lifetime. So because you're not respecting what we said, and you're not respecting me, so I'm gone. That's it. This is very simple, because the person was just being insane, and not insane, but just not respecting their own word. I mean, and for me, the most important thing when you work with someone and is trust. There's also integrity. Yeah. Yep. When you say something to someone, you stick to your word, and this person was not sticking to the word at all. So I had to say goodbye. I had to shake hands and agree. Well, basically, it was done very, very easily. We agreed to disagree. So I agreed to disagree with him, and he agreed to disagree with me. And I said, under these circumstances, I don't see how we can continue to work together. It's not possible.
Yeah, Rob. I mean, I just asked that question because I was curious, because these days, on the computer, when you say, you have to answer a question by saying, I'm not a robot. Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that it was not all that honky-dory for you, as people would like to say, that you get bosses where you had to put your foot down, like you did in 2008, as you said. You put your foot down and said, sorry, I'm the captain. I'm the captain and my team. So leave us alone, and I am not going to downsize anybody. Yeah. Okay. And then you stuck to it. And when somebody didn't agree with your terms and conditions to leave you, but then it's very often, and what would the advice that you give the people who are listening to us, our leaders, that if you are not respected for your own integrity or your self-worth that you have with you don't take up the job. Well, my advice in the hotelier language, which is quite popular, if you can't bear the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, yeah. I mean, but it's what I'd say to people is there are two things. There are two things to answer your question. The first thing is to make sure that it's not always simple, because the person, it might be that they've misunderstood something, or there can be a misunderstanding that can happen. Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is ensure that it's not a misunderstanding, and that it really is a problem that can't be resolved. But once you've got to the point where you discovered that it's a problem that can't be resolved, and it's particularly if your own core beliefs, such as integrity, such as being honest, these things are put in question, or might be put in question by what you're being asked to do, then it's time to leave. Then it's time to look for the door and leave. That's my opinion, because I think one of the, we always talk about respect in the hotel industry for your guests and for your employees and for everyone, but I think self-respect is also extremely important. You have to be able to get up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I've done a good job, I'm doing the right thing. And if you don't believe that you're doing the right thing, and you've been asked to do something which you consider to be disloyal or unethical, that's the time when you have to put your foot down. That's it. Time out. Yeah. As you said, then you leave the kitchen. For me, it's so nice that in the first segment, again, the word that kept on resonating was the word respect. Okay, and then we came and you told us about care, and now we are talking about the employees, and there again we are talking about the respect of ownership, building up alignment and respecting people, giving them time to stand back and introspect. In Japanese they call it hensai. There's a lot of Japanese word being thrown around, but we are not going to do that. We are going to say exactly, I mean, you're telling your story as a Hollywood story. So you allowed them to go back and talk to them, and the respect flows throughout, right from the first part, which were the external customers, we called guests, the internal customers. Again, we saw the concept of guests, Sorry, the guest, the concept of
internal guest, yeah.
Internal guest, so where you show respect. It's all about respect, as you said, giving them time, making them 2 hours in a month, as you said, and that doesn't mean that anytime they have a problem, they can't come to you. The door is open, as you said, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that it's all respect that you show that you listen to them. And most importantly is the last part, which is said, the respect yourself too. That's also very important, as you rightly said. And I like that. I really like that. I mean, if you can't respect yourself, you can't respect others, the way I look at it.
No, I think you're right.
So the last word for the segment with respect to employers was the catchword. You're very good at getting catchwords. So first I had the CARE.
It's the catchword for me this time is not care, because that's customers are really everything. Yeah, the catchword for me for this part with the employees is really is team. So it really is together, everyone achieves more. So it's to be participate.
Together, everybody achieves more.
Exactly.
TAM.
Yeah, team.
Team.
Together, everyone achieves more.
Right. Thank you very much. This was the second challenge that of Hotel Story. And the third challenge that you have is that, okay, all this respect is fine. Everything is fine. We care. But then we have to care for the other stakeholders too.
Yeah.
And they require euros, as in your case, rupees in India, dollars in America, and you have yen. You can have any currency, but unless you hear the noise of the currency, how will you ever get the support of the top management? So let's talk about the challenge that you face by getting business and getting money.
Yeah.
Okay. So see you next time. And
see you next time, Dr. M. Great speaking to you again.
Talk about business.